In this video I'll be showing you around Photoshop and showing you some very basic tools and techniques to get you started. When you open up Photoshop it will look like this. We haven't got a file open yet, which we're about to do, but on the side here we've got the toolbox, we've got these which are palettes, properties bar up the top, and of course the menus up here. I'll be getting into more of that later. Let's start by opening up a file, new. Now mine's already preset, but what we want in this case is A4 paper size. To get that, in this drop down menu you need to click on International Paper. If you of course click Custom you could set your own, but in our case we want A4, A3, all of those are in here. International Paper, set to A4. Now that sets all of these values in here, but just to double check, 210 by 297 millimeters will be an A4 page. We always need to make sure this is set to 300 in terms of the resolution if we are printing. If we're just viewing on screen we can set it to 72, but we'll just keep the number 300 in our head, and RGB color it should preset to. So we're ready to go. This is our new file. It's our blank canvas ready for us to work on. So what I'll show you next is this toolbox. Now the toolbox is just like an art cupboard and all the tools we've got up in the art rooms, but in our case this is of course our digital tools. Now they are arranged in types of tools. The ones up the top are selection, these are called the brush tools, these are the editing and creating shapes, and the bottom ones are a few little handy viewing tools. To access a tool all we need to do is click on them. What's really handy as well, if you just roll over the tool, it will tell you what it is. So if you need to look for a particular tool, you don't know how to find it, that's how you can view what they are. There's hidden tools under most of the tools, that's indicated by this little black arrow. If I click down and I hold, I then can access the tools which are sitting under that particular tool. So it's the little black arrow to show the hidden tools. Now with each of these tools, when I click them, you'll see that the properties bar at the top is changing. So I'll just click on the brush. For each tool there's different properties that you can adjust to modify the way that tool works. So in terms of this one we've got the brush tool, we can change the type of brush, the size of the brush, the opacity, so how transparent the brush is, and that of course will differ for the different tools that you click on. Next thing I'm going to do is insert an image from the internet, just to show you how the layers palette works. So I'm just going to go into the internet. Okay, find an image. Now when we're finding an image it's best to find large images. So if we go to search tools, we go to size, we go to large, just to make sure that we keep the best quality image that we can. It's very important too that's a very big image, which is great. It's very important to not just copy and paste it from this stage, but to go to view image, and make sure it's as maximized as you can before you do decide to copy it. So if I go to right click, copy, back to Photoshop. Now what I need to do here, I'm going to put it onto a new layer. In order to make a new layer, there's a little icon down the bottom, create new layer, and I'm going to press Ctrl V and paste. So you can see that my city image is now sitting in its own layer, okay, above the background. So that here is the layers palette, and now I've got my city image pasted in. Now with our layers palettes we can turn the visibility on and off. So if I was to click the visibility eye, I can turn it on and off. I just want to show you another way that you can insert a file into Photoshop. For example, if you have a file saved on your computer and you want to bring it in rather than copy and paste it from the internet. But it works similar to Word. Instead of insert, we use place. So a dialog box will open and you need to then go through, locate your file, and place it in. I'm just going to press enter. Okay, and that has pasted my file in. Now a little trick, this little icon on my image here means it's not going to be editable. What I need to do to treat it like a normal layer is right click and go to rasterize. So that's just a little trick there, and you can see I can turn this on and off again. What I will show you now is changing the size of your image. Now, in Photoshop terms, we call this transform. So to do transform, it's a nice little shortcut. If I hold down Control and T, you see a bounding box which is around my shape. If I grab the corners like this and I pull it down, you can see that I can transform my image. Now make sure you're always holding down Shift if you want to maintain the proportions of that particular image and not make it squashed like so. So holding down Shift. When you're done with the transformation, press Enter or double click. And our image is there. It is now resized. So as I mentioned before, this here is the layers palette, and they're the layers that exist within our file that sit up on top of each other. What I'm going to do next is create another new layer, and I'm going to create a background color with that particular layer. So again, I'm going to go to create new layer. Now what I want to do is fill this layer. I'm going to introduce you to the paint bucket tool. Now it hides underneath the gradient. It's called paint bucket tool. Now right now you can see I've got a little paint bucket pouring paint. I want to change the color of that. To do so, this is how I modify the color of what I want to paint, add, and so on. So if I double click on this, I can select any color in the world from in here, okay, and I can pull these sliders up and down. So in this case I might put a nice bright yellow, and you'll see that it's also changed down there. Now if I click on my image, it's paint filled that whole layer. Now there's a bit of a problem. It's sitting above our image. So in the layers palette, what we can do is if we click and drag, you'll see how it's wanting to click between the two layers. If I just bring that down and put that underneath, you can now see that our image is sitting on top of our background layer. Now the only other really thing to know at this stage about the layers palette, if I want to delete something, I need to click the layer and I can press delete, and that will delete that particular layer, and I press yes. Okay. And also if I right click, I get a lot of options of different tools and techniques I can access to do with that particular layer. Now what's really important, which a lot of issues get caused from, is not having the right layer selected. So just say I wanted to come and change the color of this image. I've got to make sure that that layer is selected, otherwise it will not affect that layer. A few other little handy things in here. Opacity essentially means transparency, so I can turn down the transparency of particular layers. Okay, and I think that's just about it for the layers palette. Last thing of this video is showing you how to use the text tool. So the text tool is the one with the big T in the tool palette. Now if I click that tool and I click on my page, you can see over here it's created another layer, in this case a text layer. So I'm just going to write a word. Now you'll see that it is yellow, which obviously is not showing on my yellow background. You can see the top color is also up here. What I'm going to do is select my text, click up here, and then I can change it, okay, to that color. What I can also do in our properties bar of our text tool, of course, is change the font. A nice little trick is if you've got to roll a mouse wheel, click and roll your mouse wheel if you want to preview the text. Of course I can change the size. Now if I want to get bigger than 72, all I need to do is simply type in my value up the top there. Okay, so you can see I've got a text layer, my image, my background layer, and how to move things around. We use the move tool and it moves the layer which is selected in the layers palette. So if I wanted to move the city, I need to click the city and I can move the city around. And that's the end for the basics Photoshop.